Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we wanted to go through the wonderful life of Srinivas Acharya. His appearance day was 2 days ago, and due to so many festivals on that day, and yesterday we talked about Madhavendra Puri. So today we thought we'd focus on Srinivas Acharya. So we've got a lot to share. Of course, his life is phenomenal, but we wanted to share as much as we could. So this is his Samadhi or Bhajan Kutir, probably in Mayapur somewhere, I think. Okay. He's the embodiment of Lord Chaitanya's love. Now, what does that mean? We'll see that in a little while. Srinivas Acharya is one of the most important personalities in the religious history of Bengal, and also one of the most important Vaishnava teachers in the generation immediately after Mahaprabhu. So he didn't get to see Mahaprabhu, I don't think. We shall see in a few minutes. He is chiefly remembered as the illustrious disciple of Gopal Bhatt Goswami and Jiva Goswami. So he had two other friends with him. Anybody remember their names? The three devotees who did the first book distribution. The first book distribution party. Anybody remember their names? Nobody. How come? Shall I give you a clue? Naro is one. Naratam. Yeah. And Shyam.
I can't.
He was called Dukhi Krishna. Then he was made Shyam Sundar. Wasn't it Shyam Sundar? No. Shyam Sundar Das. No. Anyway, we'll see it in a minute. His achievements included the delivery. Sukhi, I know, but I think they call him Shyamananda. His achievements include delivering the writings of Goswamis from Vrindavan to Bengal. We'll see this a little later, but these books got stolen by this king. And then Srinivas, he recovered those books and he converted the king into Vaishnavism. And he also has a very special style of kirtan, Manohar Shoi. No idea what that is, but maybe Karuna will know. At Katuri, in Bengal, he co-organized the first Go Purim festival with Narottam Das and Janava Devi. His parents, Gangadhar Bhattacharya and Lakshmi Priya is his mother. They lived in a small village called Chakandi on the Ganga in Bengal. And they didn't have a child. So they had this desire to have a child for many, many years. And Gangadhar was himself a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He would spend a lot of time listening and hearing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And in 1510, he went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, not able to bear the separation anymore. However, after only 7 miles, as far as the village of Katwa, he learned that Nimai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was going to take sannyas. And that was a bit of a shock. Why must my Lord take sannyas? Sannyas is a very austere way of life. This austerity is reserved for human beings like me, so that we can overcome our attachments to this world. For the Lord, there's no need to take this harsh life of an ascetic. Gangadhar's reservations were mixed with excitement. He would also be seeing the Lord face to face. So there was, on one point, sadness, but on the other side, great happiness. When he approached the sacrificial area when Nimai was taking sannyas, he saw the Lord's intimate associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar Acharya, Mukunda Dutt and others. He saw Madhusila, the barber, preparing to cut Nimai's beautiful locks of raven black hair. No, The onlookers were saying, please stop. They, like Gangadhar, could not conceive of the Lord in the renounced order of life. Even Madhu, the barber, who had the great fortune to touch the Lord's head, could cut his hair out of duty only. He was weeping profusely. Madhu and the others knew that the Lord had decided to set an example for the entire religious world and stress the importance of renunciation. There was nothing they could do. Keshava Bharti, the sannyas guru, gave Nimai his sannyas name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. The crowd was in shock. Beautiful Nimai is taking sannyas. They couldn't believe their eyes, from which the tears were flowing incessantly. But the deed was done. Madhu fainted. Why had he shaved the Lord's head? It was as if he had been controlled by the Lord's own hand to fulfill the Lord's own desire. Gangadhar found himself calling the Lord's name aloud with uncontrollable enthusiasm. Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He returned to his home village, Chakandi, half mad with ecstasy, unable to stop repeating the Lord's names. He told his wife what had happened, and she too was overcome with ecstasy. As the days passed, their ecstasy increased, and the whole town of Chakandi marveled at Gangadhar's transformation. Seeing his absorption in Chaitanya's name, his wife and other villagers began calling him Chaitanya Das. So Chaitanya Das, who was previously Gangadhar, and his wife, again, they couldn't bear separation from Chaitanya. So they went to Jagannath Puri, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone after taking sannyas. And when they arrived, they surrendered at his lotus feet. And the Lord, he said to them, Jagannath is very happy that you've come. Go into a temple and take darshan of his deity form. The lotus-eyed Lord is extremely merciful, so go see him. He would do that to everyone. Sometimes he would tell them, go and have a bath in the ocean and then go and see Jagannath. Govinda, the Lord's personal servant, accompanied Chaitanya and his wife to the temple, where they offered many prayers at the feet of Lord Jagannath. Weeping tears of love, the happy Brahman couple was soon escorted to the accommodations Lord Chaitanya had arranged for them. They spent several happy days with Mahaprabhu in Puri. One day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his servants of his plans for the couple. Govinda, the Lord said, although Chaitanya Das and his wife had not mentioned it to me, I know they would like to have a child. They said so in front of Jagannath. And I am Jagannath. They have prayed sincerely. I know their heart. Their desire offspring will soon appear. His name will be Srinivas. He will be a greatly beautiful child. Through Rupa and Sanatana, I will manifest the Bhakti Shastras, and through Srinivas, I will distribute them. So this is real blessing by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In Chakandi, the couple had a beautiful boy. They called him Srinivas. He was born around 1510 on the auspicious day, full moon day of the month of Vaishak. Lakshmi Priya's father, Balaram Vipra, so the grandfather of Srinivas, he was a learned astrologer. He told the couple that their son was a Mahapurush, divinely empowered soul. He had a broad chest and a long, elegant nose, and his beautiful eyes extended like lotus petals. Like Lord Chaitanya, he had a bodily luster resembling molten gold and arms that extended to his knees. So according to custom, Chaitanya and Lakshmi Priya gave charity to the Brahmins, and the Brahmins blessed the child. Lakshmi Priya would constantly sing the glories of Chaitanya into the ears of the child, and the melodious sounds made him joyous. As he grew, he learned to chant the names of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna. Soon, this small crescent moon known as Srinivas grew full and was known as the brightest and most beautiful boy in Chakandi. He studied under the famed Dhananjaya Vidya Vachaspati, who taught him all branches of Vedic learning, including religion, logic, poetry, politics, science, grammar, Ayurveda. According to the Prema Vilas, Dhananjaya said he had nothing to teach Srinivas. Srinivas was really bright. He relates that the goddess of education appeared to Srinivas in a dream and told him she would make him proficient in all areas of learning, especially the scriptures. Still, Srinivas became known as Dhananjaya Vidya Vachaspati's prize pupil, and as such he was the pride of Chakandi. He was loved by the townspeople who saw him as a precious gem. Because of Srinivas's popularity, he met Narahari Sarakar, an intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya from nearby Shrikandi. So we've talked about Narahari Sarakara. His devotion was very intense and it pleased Mahaprabhu very much. He had the distinction of being allowed to sing the Lord's glories in the Lord's presence, although the Lord, out of humility, would not let anybody else do so. That's a really amazing blessing. Oops. So the this distinction impressed the young Srinivas, and he accepted Narahari as his first instructing guru. After meeting Narahari Sarakar, Srinivas began to show signs of ecstasy. Narahari told Srinivas to go to Puri to see Mahaprabhu. Now, while Srinivas was considering how to execute this instruction, his father passed away from this mortal world after 7 days of fever. It was a shock to the family, and Srinivas consoled his mother. Meanwhile, the omniscient Mahaprabhu was preparing his associates for Srinivas's arrival. He had written to Rupa Sanatan Gopal Bhatt Goswami, requesting them to teach Srinivas spiritual life. And he asked Gadadhar Pandit in Jagannath Puri to teach Srinivas the Bhagavatam. Narahari Sarakara advised Srinivas to see his mother's care in Jaligram, where his father and brothers had moved from Chakandi. Then Srinivas went to Puri to associate with Chaitanya. Srinivas asked Narahari to initiate him into the chanting of Krishna's name, but Narahari told him that Mahaprabhu wanted him to take initiation from Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Still a boy, Srinivas left with a companion for Puri. On the way, he heard Mahaprabhu had left the world. He was devastated. Then Mahaprabhu, along with Nityananda, who had also passed away, appeared to Srinivas in a spiritual vision and consoled him. Still, Srinivas remained grief-stricken. He went to Gopinath temple in Puri to take shelter of Gadadhar Pandit. The Pandit was overcome with separation from Chaitanya. Tears also flowed from his eyes. And devotees may recall, he aged very fast after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Within a few months, he looked like a very old man. Srinivas bowed at Gadadhar's feet and introduced himself. And Gadadhar was very happy. I'm so glad you've come and introduced yourself. Before Mahaprabhu left, he told me to teach you the Bhagavatam. He knew you would come to Puri one day, and he wanted me to explain Krishna Leela to you. But I can't teach you at this time because the scripture, the manuscript in my possession, I can't read anymore because of the tears that I've cried on its pages. So Srinivas touched the sacred book to his head and felt ecstasy arising within himself. Nonetheless, the problem of studying a book that had been rendered illegible remained. But Gadadhar and Srinivas would not be swayed from their purpose. The will of Mahaprabhu would not be obstructed. Gadadhar sent a message to Narahari Sarakar, asking him to secure another manuscript of Bhagavatam. And Narahari replied that another copy was available and a messenger would be dispatched immediately. In the meantime, Gadadhar sent Srinivas himself and told him to hurry. Separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was just too much, and he doesn't know how long he will stay in this world. So before going though, Srinivas fulfilled a long desired, cherished desire to see Chaitanya's associates. He went to the homes of Ramananda Ray, Sikhi Mahiti, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Vakeshwar Pandit, Brahmananda Puri, Gopinath Charya, many others. So they were all in Puri. He also went to King Prataparudra, and according to Bhakti Ratnakar, the king had gone away in solitude to lament the Lord's passing. Seeing his intense and unprecedented love of God, the devotees could understand that he was Gaura Shakti, the embodiment of the energy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to Prema Vilas, Srinivas is the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy. So he's a really powerful personality. Lord's intimate associates could naturally perceive this and could understand that through Srinivas, the eternal message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be widely distributed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had broken open the storehouse of nectar or nectarian of love of Godhead. And the Goswamis, by writing the books, had taken that nectar and placed it in tangible vessels. Srinivas could see these vessels, would see these vessels were circulated amongst all sincere souls. So we're really fortunate. Prabhupada is in this line of also doing the same thing. And we also have some opportunity to serve in our little capacity. The intimate associates of the Lord gave Srinivas instructions and advice for serving on this mission. When Srinivas arrived in Bengal, received a copy of Bhagavatam from Narahari Sarakar, he learned Gadadhar had passed away. This was a big, big blow to Srinivas. He reflected on the inconceivable will of the Lord. Why had he taken away the person who was going to teach him the Bhagavatam? Was there a new plan? Was somebody else to teach me the sacred scriptures? Some say that Srinivas felt despondent at this time, but not much is known about the years that followed Gadadhar's passing from this world. It is generally assumed that Srinivas spent this time at first in a heartbroken state and then in serious meditation. He probably continued his studies as he's still in his teens. He was very young. When Janava Devi, the wife of Nityananda, went to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami asked her to send Srinivas to Vrindavan as soon as possible. So when she went back to Bengal, she told Narahari that Srinivas is expected in Vrindavan to be trained by the 6 Goswamis. So Narahari advised him, come on, go quickly to Vrindavan. You should not violate the Lord's command. So then Srinivas, he desired to study with Rupa and Sanatan. Had he gone to Vrindavan then, he would have met. But instead, he went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's principal associates on the way, stopping at Navadvip to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's home. This was the second time he delayed this visit, a journey. First time was when he was meant to be with Gadadhar, and now Rupa and Sanatan. Perhaps his enthusiasm to associate with Lord Chaitanya's direct followers in Puri and Navadvip was so overwhelming that he was unable to heed the advice of Narahari. Some say that all of this was the will of providence, and that so that Srinivas would take Diksha from Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Others say by his example, he was teaching the importance of pilgrimage and associating with devotees. Srinivas was enthralled with Navadvip. He met Vishnu Priya, the Lord's revered widow, and her esteemed servant Vamsi Vardhana Thakur and Ishan Puri Prabhu. During those days, he watched Vishnu Priya perform severe austerities. For example, she would chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and with every grain of rice, she would chant the mantra and put 1 grain of rice aside. When she's finished chanting the whole day. She would only cook those grains and eat those grains that she had chanted on. This is really tapasya. Srinivas also met Damodar Pandit, Shuklambar, Murari Gupta, other friends and intimate associates. From there, Srinivas went to Shantipur and he met Advaita Acharya's wife, Shita Thakuri, and her sons Achyuta and Gopal. I wonder if Advaita Acharya was still there at that time. I think he was.
Sure, Spino.
Srinivas visited the homes of Nityananda and he got the blessings of Janava Devi and her adopted son Virabhadra and others as well. But Janava told him, go, Vrindavan's waiting for you, Rupa and Sanatan. What are you still doing here? But on the way to Vrindavan, he also went to see Abhiram Thakur in Kanakul, Krishnanagar, to deliver a letter from Janava Devi. And the Thakur greeted him with 3 loving lashes from an extraordinary whip. But this unusual greeting was a benediction. The whip, known as Jal Mangal, would bestow love of God on anyone who it touched. While continuing his journey, Srinivas stopped in Katwa, where his father had seen Lord Chaitanya adopt the renounced order. Next, he went to Agra Dweep, where the 3 famous Ghosh brothers, Vasudev Ghosh, Govinda Ghosh, Madhav Ghosh, had established a temple. Then he went to Ekachakra, place of Nityananda. And finally, he made one more stop in Jajigram to say goodbye to his mother and to visit his guru. And Narahari was a little concerned that why are you still faffing around here? You should be in Vrindavan. And then Srinivas set out for Vrindavan. This time he was he was beyond his teens. Of course, in the meantime, Sanatana Goswami left, Rupa Goswami also left. But they instructed Jiva Goswami to look after Srinivas when he comes. And of course, traveling in those days was not easy. And again, he went to Vrindavan via Banaras, went to the house of Chandrasekhar. Mahaprabhu lived there for a couple of months. Then he went to Prayag, spent a night there. And then he arrived in Vrindavan. And he heard that Rupa and Sanatan had left, and he was devastated. He didn't meet Chaitanya, he had very little time with Gadadhar. Now he's not met Rupa and Sanatan. So it was pretty tough. But Rupa and Sanatan came to him in a dream and he encouraged them that take shelter of Gopal Bhatt and study under Jiva Goswami. So he went to, when he went to Vrindavan, he first reached Radha Govind temple, which is Rupa Goswami's temple. And everybody had realized this is Srinivas. So they told Jiva, and Jiva Goswami met him, hugged him. Then they introduced him to Gopal Bhatt Goswami. And Gopal Bhatt took Srinivas to Radha Raman temple so that he can get blessed. And in this way, he was introduced to everybody. He was one of the star pupils, star personalities, youngster. Everybody else was fairly old. So him, Narottam, and Shyamananda were the 3 stars. So Gopal Bhatt initiated Srinivas, and Jiva Goswami gave him shiksha through all the scriptures that he'd written. And Gopal Bhatt directed Srinivas to Jiva Goswami to learn all the scriptures, gave him a great education. There was, of course, as we've been talking, there's Narottam and Srinivas, they became great friends. Narottam took initiation from Lokanath Goswami, and again, studying under Jiva Goswami. And then Dukhi Krishna, who became known as Shyamananda. So these 3 were really very, very famous and popular. And at some point, they were given a special mission. This is the first book distribution party. All the Goswami's books, they were instructed to deliver them to Bengal where they were needed. And they were given men, and a good setup had been arranged for them. Of course, they didn't want to leave Vrindavan, but they knew the importance of this mission. So they took their blessings and left. So sometimes we may also get instructions which we may not like to follow, but we have to understand those instructions carry the mercy of the Lord through the Guru's instructions. So it's important to listen to the Guru and accept his instructions and do what he says. Jiva Goswami began the preparations for the long and arduous journey. These devotees were his best students, and he also felt a lot of pain. So he had a rich merchant disciple in Mathura, supplied a large cart. He had 4 strong bullocks, 10 armed guards. The manuscripts were in a large wooden chest, bolted and covered with a wax cloth. And also there was a special passport that was arranged from the king of Jaipur, because these areas were a lot of them were under Mughal control. So they left, and after some time they reached a certain kingdom, Mala kingdom of Vana Vishnupur. And they were resting. At that time, some bandits came and they stole the manuscripts, thinking that this was jewels and gold, etc. When they were actually the king's dacoits. The king was a little crooked, although he was a devotee as well. But the king's astrologers told him that there's a lot of treasure coming your way. So the dacoits, they followed this cart for some time, and eventually they stole the books. Now, the astrologer had said that this cart, they stole the cart. They didn't sell the books. They didn't know what was in the cart. The astrologer told them that there's more value in this cart than there are than gold or jewels. Of course, these books are extremely valuable because they contain the highest knowledge. So when they were stolen, the cart was stolen, everybody was in shock. These are the most important teachings. And in the meantime, the king was looking through the treasure and he realized, actually, wow, this is important stuff. This is really important. He was actually a devotee in a sense. So he kept that treasure very, very safe. He kept the books very safe, but he didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, eventually the king had a dream, and Srinivas actually appeared in his dream, and he said to him that I will be coming, I will retrieve my manuscripts, and you will be relieved of your sinful reactions for stealing them. So maybe that was not Srinivas, that's probably Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyway, next morning, the king woke up, and in the meantime, also Srinivas came to his kingdom. And in this way, eventually he made it to the court of the kingdom, and next day they found Srinivas Acharya pontificating in the same fashion. After 2 weeks of the court pundit, Srinivas could not contain himself. After the meeting, he spoke to Srinivas Acharya. You, sir, do not follow the text. Ah, that's right. The court pundit, he was reciting from the Bhagavatam, but his commentary was not in accordance with the real meaning of the Bhagavatam. And then Srinivas explained the Bhagavatam. And then the king realized that this personality is a very important personality who understands the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not so easy to understand, very easy to misinterpret it. And of course, the court Acharya didn't like being told off in front of the king, especially telling him that the explanations you're giving are at fault. And he was so arrogant, he was saying to Srinivas that who can interpret the text better than me? I'm a Pandit. And you are such a young boy. What makes you think you are an authority on the Bhagavatam? So even if you think you're an authority, tell us about the Bhagavatam. Srinivas rose to the challenge. He sang the Bhagavatam verses beautifully and then commented upon them with great revere and authority. He drew upon existing Vaishnava explanations and yet offered his own unique presentation. No one had ever heard such a masterly enunciation of the Bhagavad philosophy. And the king, he loved it. The Pandit, he was devastated because he lost. But of course, he was also happy because he heard the Bhagavatam from a pure devotee. The king, he was so moved that he requested Srinivas to introduce himself. And Srinivas said, I am Srinivas, I am a native of this country. I came here to see your magnificent court and relish the Bhagavatam. And the king gave him a very nice accommodation. And Srinivas was very austere as well, but the king would ask him, please have something to eat. He would eat once a day, but the king would insist on him to eat more. Now, Srinivas was that effulgent person that the king had seen in this dream, his guru. So the king started doing some menial service for Srinivas. And king understood that here is a genuine saint. He is simply absorbed in the name of Krishna. With this pleasant idea, the king fell asleep, listening to Srinivas's beautiful voice in the next room. The following day in the great assembly, Srinivas again spoke from the Bhagavatam, and the audience relished every word. He would astound everybody who spoke. Those who report this event said that even the stone walls of the hall seemed to melt with emotion. Srinivas spoke with erudition, sensitivity, and devotion, honoring his Vaishnava predecessors. And everyone present agreed that the wisdom of the orator far exceeded his years. One by one, people came and bowed at Srinivas's feet, hoping to become his disciple. Later, the king submitted himself to Srinivas as a low beggar. You are the real king, he said to Srinivas, for you have love for Krishna. I am unworthy to be in your presence. So, of course, Srinivas was very humble and he wouldn't accept any of this. But the king kept persisting, please, I am your servant. Now, he made this appeal. I came from the holy city of Vrindavan with a mission from my gurus, Gopal Bhatt and Jiva Goswamis. I was to bring their teachings to Bengal, but unfortunately this treasure was robbed within your kingdom. If I cannot retrieve these books, I would prefer to lose my life. Can you help me get them back? And of course, at this time, the king completely fell apart. A poor worm am I, lost hopelessly in the land of birth and death. My own men pillaged for years and years under my order. And then they came upon your party. We were told you carried the greatest treasure in the universe, and we naturally pursued it. I'm so sorry. Reflecting for a moment, the king said, there is a positive side to this, of course. We've met. Our meeting would not have taken place, but I've committed so many sins. But at least I got your darshan. Srinivas laughed and reassured the king that sinful life was unnecessary for attaining his association. Srinivas then forgave the king for all the sins and asked him to sin no more. So in this way, he got the books, he forgave the king took shelter of Srinivas. He took initiation from Srinivas, as well as um, many people in that kingdom. Srinivas gave him the name of Haricharan Das. So in this way, he became very powerful. The king's wife, Sulakshana, and their son, Prince Dari Hamvir, also became Srinivas's surrendered servants. So in this way, he really spread Krishna consciousness through Bengal. Vishnupura soon became a center of Vaishnavism. And I think, as far as I understand, it still is a center of some Vaishnavism. And the king, he wrote many songs in praise of Krishna. He became such an amazing devotee of the Lord. This is all the power of Srinivas Acharya. And then Srinivas, he wrote to Jiva Goswami, because they told Jiva Goswami the books had been stolen. But now they wrote that we found, and we've actually established a very important center in this place. And then later on, Narottam and Shyamananda had gone their different ways. That left Srinivas to find the books, which of course he had. And he wanted to join them again. In the meantime, he heard that his guru, initial guru, Narahari Sarakar, had also passed away. So, and his mother was still there. He went to see her. And in this way, he took the books with him. He met Janava Devi. He met Narottam Das Thakur again. His mother wanted him to get married. So hearing this, he resolved to also get married. And he did marry somebody called Draupadi, who was a daughter of Gopal Chakravarti, an elderly Brahmin. And also, who did the marriage? Raghunandan Thakur, he did the marriage. After the marriage, Draupadi was called Ishwari. They had a son called Vrindavan Vallabh. He married again. His second wife, Padmavati, was a great devotee. After initiation, she was known as Gauranga Priya. One may wonder, why did he take a second wife? Most of the standard biographers do not elaborate, stating merely that the second marriage followed the first by a few years. But the Anuragvali informs us that his most intimate disciples asked that he marry upon the death of his two sons from Ishwari. They are said to have died young, right? So Ishwari had three daughters, Hemalata, Krishnapriya, and Kanchan, also known as Yamuna. Gauranga Priya had a son, Gati Govinda. Both Ishwari and her daughters later had many disciples, and Srinivas's bloodline is still said to continue in Vrindavan from Gati Govinda. Okay, Narahari did see him one more time, so he hadn't passed away. He was just ill. And then later on, Srinivas, I think they did the festival at Keturi. All three of them celebrated the first Gopunim festival with Narottam and Shyamananda. And then later, Srinivas went back to Vrindavan. And one of his most important followers is Raman Chandra Kaviraj. We sing his bhajans a lot. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Koromore, one of the bhajans that he sung. So he was a very important disciple. He was like his other eye and other arm. Ramachandra had a brother, and they were both, Govinda was also a disciple of Srinivas. And they were both celebrated scholars, artists, and poets. Ramachandra became known, accepted as Srinivas's most notable disciple. Narottam asked Srinivas to take charge of Ramachandra. Okay. So let's just see what else is there. Now, because that was the first time Srinivas went back to Vrindavan, the Goswamis were eager to meet him and show him their appreciation. And especially Gopal Bhatt Goswami wanted him to take over the worship of Radha Raman. And due to his powerful preaching, actually, he gave that duty of Radha Raman, as we were talking yesterday or day before, to Gopinath Pujari, Gopinath. And Srinivas, he wanted to continue preaching. So from Gopinath, the Goswamis have come of the Radha Raman temple. And Damodar, yeah, that's a good one. And the descendants are still in charge. Shyamananda returned to Vrindavan around about the same time as Srinivas. So they deepened their friendship. They resumed their studies. This is amazing, isn't it? He knows so much, Srinivas. He knows the Bhagavatam. He recites it even if before the king. And yet they never stopped studying. Even when he returned back to Vrindavan. It wasn't that, oh yeah, I know the Bhagavad, I've converted a king, leave me alone. He didn't have an attitude of, let's carry on studying. So this is a really important example. We should never stop studying the Bhagavatam. Never stop. If once we finish, we start again. Gradually, Srinivas began to reveal his mystic potency, and it became apparent that he was fully absorbed in the most intimate love of God. But the missionary work was incomplete. After several months, Srinivas and the others returned to Bengal, encouraged by the Vrindavan Goswamis. On the way, they stopped in Mana Vishnupur to see the king again, who was delighted to see them, of course. And the king, he showed his devotion throughout the kingdom. The persuasiveness of Krishna consciousness, especially in Vishnupur, lasted well after the time Srinivas and into the following centuries. I think there's still some remnants of this. His successor, Raghunath Singh, built Vaishnava temples in many distant villages for the tribal people. And he was a great king. So very quickly, last bits, the activities of Srinivas can fill volumes. As we can see, there's so much. I've glazed over most of it. Several books offer detail of his daily life in Vishnupur and Jajigram. Early morning, he would read from scriptures, explaining and interpreting them for his disciples. The study of these books would occupy him till 10 in the morning. Then until 2, he would chant on beads in solitude, often, occasionally worshipping Krishna according to his inner meditation. From 4 in the evening till 6, he would do congregational chanting with his disciples. The form of kirtan for which he became famous is Manohar Shoy. Some say it is the only authentic classical style that has survived. And at night, he would instruct his disciples and talk with them about Krishna's pastimes. And he's done quite a lot of work. He's written only 5 songs. He's done a commentary on the 4 essential verses of Bhagavatam. His other works include Goswami Astakam. Oh, so it's him who sung that. Okay. Through his literary work, though his literary work is sparse, his contents and style and nectarian, he left a unique mark on Gaudiya tradition. Oops, what was the last bit? Just as the authorized biographers of Mahaprabhu leave aside the detail of his passing from the world, Srinivas's followers are silent about Srinivas's disappearance. Although his divine ascension remains a mystery, his life remains an inspiration. Srinivas Acharya ki jai. Okay, so any comments or questions? That was quite a long session. Everybody awake? Anybody asleep?
Still here, Prabhuji.
Very powerful personality. Very powerful personality. Yes,
Very well explained, Prabhuji. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your encouragement. Okay. Nani Ben, any questions?
I could not join. I joined till after 10 past 4 because there was no internet here.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
on to the skies. I joined very late. So it's
Yeah.
sounds
this
like
is the
amazing
last
personality,
Yes,
Srinivas.
yeah. The last of the Mohicans, I suppose. The last of the amazing personalities that we've been celebrating this week. Such an amazing week. Every day we could fill with so much nectar from these personalities.
Yeah.
So from Monday, I think Monday also is another personality, Ramananda Ray, we're going to talk about, because I think his appearance is on Sunday. So we won't get a chance on Sunday. So we'll talk about it on Monday. Tuesday, we'll do Bhagavatam. Wednesday is the appearance day of, or the according to the Western calendar, of our Guru Maharaj, Krishnadas Swami. So we'll talk about him then. And then Thursday, Friday, we'll continue with Bhagavatam. So that's hopefully the plan for next week. And tomorrow, Karuna will be continuing with teaching us the Nishinga prayers. And it's really very, very valuable. Thank you for doing that. So.